So congratulations to Scarlets making the postseason, the URC playoffs, a bit of positivity for fans of Welsh rugby, a little glimmer of light in the darkness of what? Oh, right. Yeah, forget that. Wales are ditching a region. You can't just let Scarlets have their moment, can you? You have to absolutely, I was going to use a rude word there, you have to absolutely dump on it. Looks like this is happening. A region is being cut. What do you make of this? Lots to discuss. The first thing to say is it's coming from Wales Online, which means there has to naturally be a little question mark next to it. However, it does seem to have a little bit of substance behind it, this one. And it just could be another chapter in the ever worsening life of rugby fans following Wales and Welsh regions, because you just think, can the WRU take integrity to new lows? One of the worst things about this, we can discuss the whys and wherefores and how it could be implemented, if it's a good idea, if it's going to solve the problem, who gets cut, all of those questions. But first and foremost, this has come out, firstly, within a matter of hours of Scarlets getting to the playoffs. It's also come out at a time when all of the teams, staff, players are on the other side of the world in South Africa. In fact, for many of them, this news probably broke whilst they're on a plane back home. In fact, there's a very, very good chance that the first any of these people know about it is when they get the 1,000 messages from worried wives and parents and colleagues and friends when they put their phone out of airplane mode when they land, which just feels cowardly. Yeah, you wouldn't put it past someone at the WRU going, just why don't we leak this out whilst everyone's on the other side of the world? That will just kind of make things easier. I was going to say I hope it's not true, but it's more nuanced than that, isn't it? You never want the pain of a redundancy or uncertainty about your future to affect anyone, but you also want long-term solutions to deep-rooted problems, and deep-rooted problems is what we have in Welsh rugby, which is clearly not in a position to sustain 4 regions successfully. And the knock-on effect that is having for the quality of rugby there, for the engagement of fans, for the success in domestic competitions and the success of the national team, it's clear and obvious for everybody to see. The issue, before I get into all of that, in fact, let me just say, actually, before I say anything else, let me know what you think in the comments down below. There's a lot of questions, many of them unanswered, because of the way this is being, whether it's being leaked or just loose lips sink ships and it's just got out. I don't know. Is it true? We don't know, because there's no official word. And is anybody surprised that the WRU's messaging and communications is poor? Don't think so. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe as well. That really helps me spread the word in the channel and stories like this, which I think is really, really important for rugby fans everywhere to understand. So I just want to take you back to, I think it was February, when Abby Tierney sat there in front of a microphone behind the WRU board and said, and I'm quoting here because I've gone back to check this interview, she said, quote, "We are absolutely committed to 4 regions and funding them equally." Bearing in mind this news, let me just read that again. Quote, "We are absolutely committed to 4 regions and funding them equally." Now, quite often, and I've sat and been the person asking questions in interviews to rugby players, coaches, bigwigs, whatever the case may be. Quite often, sometimes it's the things which don't appear to make don't make the headlines and are easy to ignore. Those are the bits you need to pay attention to, because having gone back and checked out that interview, what Abby Tierney also said in that interview when asked about cutting a region, she said, we're committed to keeping 4 regions and funding them equally. She also said, and it would take 2 years to do that anyway, as in it would take 2 years to cut a region. So she knew exactly how long it would take, what the repercussions would be. And I would argue now, if this turns out to be true, even when the words were coming out of her mouth, we are absolutely committed to 4 regions and funding them equally, what she meant was, ... for the next 2 years. I think this was always her intention, but the WRU have just not been open and honest about the reality. And that would be the bit that would frustrate me the most. So yeah, lots of questions, like I said, that this throws up. Which one? Which region? What happens to the URC? Will this actually solve the problems? And then, of course, you have to leverage all of those factors up against. And let me just get out front and acknowledge the short-term human impact this is going to have. It's not just going to affect players, coaches, staff, at whichever region it is that gets cut. It's going to affect everybody, because the best players are going to get the contracts, and there is going to be effectively a team's worth of players who are going to be out. And they might be from Dragons, they might be from Scarlets, they might be from Cardiff, they might be from Ospreys, whichever it works out. So this is unsettling for everybody. And of course, mortgages get paid based on the income as a rugby player or a staff member, and families. You know, everyone's been through this, either themselves or someone they know, and it's a painful process. So let me get out there and in front and say that. What I can also say is, I do think this is absolutely necessary. I do think it is the right thing. I've been saying that on the channel for a while, to the point that, let me just question that headline that Wales Online came up with, bombshell development. No, it's not a bombshell development. Everybody's been saying this should probably happen for a while. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people have been saying this is just the sensible thing to do for a long time now, myself included. If you detach the WRU being awful, and you detach the pain it's going to have on individuals and their families, this does seem sensible. What's also going on here, you've got this whole issue of the professional rugby agreement that the WRU and the regions, there were deadlines set for teams to sign it, and then they didn't sign it. Cardiff and Dragons signed it. Obviously Cardiff signed it because they're owned by the WRU. Dragons also signed it, but now it appears like maybe we're starting to learn why Scarlets and Ospreys didn't sign it, because I think they may have interpreted this as, this isn't going to end well. And I think we'd be signing our own end here for one of them potentially. So possibly that's why it wasn't signed. Anyway, that's been rumbling on and on and on. I honestly think and I think it will come out, the more we learn about this was always the intention, but the WRU were just not honest and open about what the plan was. When you look around at other countries, just to compare the way Welsh domestic rugby is set up, as I say, I do think this is a sensible move. I mean, just look at Ireland, for example. They've got a relatively small population, a little bit bigger than Wales. They operate 4 teams, but that is on an old provincial system which has clear identities. They all have banners under which they play that have been going back for centuries. The counties all feed into those. That's based on that identity, the infrastructure, the history, the identity, it's all there. When you look at English rugby, they managed to sustain 10 teams. Well, barely sustain 10 teams, racking up debt. The RFU are increasingly having to subsidise these teams just to keep them afloat. And there's still question marks over the future of some of them financially. But what they do leverage, the English Premiership, what it leverages, what it has in spades, is historic community-based rivalries which really, really engage fans. Bath against Leicester, we saw that game yesterday. I mean, that is a rivalry that is, it's about as fierce a rugby rivalry as you will find anywhere. The legend of those matches and those two teams, the powerhouses of English rugby down the years, generations of people remember that. Quins against Saracens, the rivers run really deep with that one. Bath, Bristol, and it goes on. Wales, the mad thing is, Wales have those same historic identities and rivalries as well. They just lobbed them out when they set up their regional system. They threw out the family silver. And the prime example of that is Ospreys. You've got, I mean, my brother was a professional rugby player, played for London Irish, played for Sale. When he was coming through the Bath Academy, he got sent on loan and played in the Welsh Premiership. And so I went to see a lot of Welsh Premiership games. Neath and Swansea, amazing clubs, brilliant sets of fans. They hate each other. Like, their rivalry, it's the one game that they were looking forward to all year. They loved it. And having been at a Neath Swansea game, it was amazing. And then you go and put those two sets of fans together Right, yeah, I know you don't like each other very much. I know rugby-wise, I know you've got this rivalry, but you're now going to be supporters of the same team. Off you go, play nice. It was never going to work. So, yeah, and England has kept that sort of identity, that tribal nature. Scotland has cultivated it with Edinburgh and Glasgow. It, like Wales, it had more teams than than they currently have. In the past, they tried the Border Reivers. It didn't work. They quickly shut it down. Painful move, but they did it swiftly, and they went back to, do you know what? Let's just focus on our two big cities, two teams, and we'll do those well. We'll have only two, but we'll do them well. And Wales, I think, haven't been decisive in anything that they've done. So yeah, those are definite lessons. And then you look to South Africa, a population of over 50 million, rugby mad country, and it has 4 teams, the same number of teams as Wales. There's private money going into these South African teams. There's big TV deals purely within South Africa, huge TV audiences. When I was in South Africa and I watched the TV, every other advert had a rugby player in it endorsing a product. It's mad. And they've only got 4 teams in the URC. How can Wales honestly think that they're going to make it work? So, yeah, I just think it's crazy that it's got this far, frankly. As for the painful question of which region goes, Cardiff are clearly safe. Capital City, now owned by the WRU, so if there was any doubt, then that's gone anyway. But, yeah, no, Cardiff are obviously going to stay. So then it's one of the other 3, isn't it? The obvious one to say is, well, get rid of Dragons. They're absolutely bobbins. And, yeah, on the pitch, they are rubbish. I mean, they're running a tight ship in terms of they're not losing money. They're the only Welsh region that is being financially sustainable. And that is why they're really bad on the pitch. Because they're going, no, we're not going to give out silly contracts because we still want to be here in 10 years' time. And I credit them for that. They're not very good. And so the obvious thing is to go, well, get rid of them. However, they tap into an identity, having talked about the identity of local areas in Newport, southeast of Wales. And also, I think if you get rid of Dragons, you just open up the possibility that a load of rugby players in that area just get taken across the Severn Bridge to Bristol, to Bath, to Gloucester, to Worcester. And I think that would be really bad for Welsh rugby. So without being too nationalistic, I think Wales need to protect their border in rugby terms and keep the Dragons, which means it comes down to Ospreys or Scarlets. And I think I've already explained why it should be Ospreys. As painful as that is for the players, for the staff, for everyone connected with the club, for the fans who've invested time and energy into that team and supporting them, and I feel for those people. But it has to be Ospreys because it's putting Neath and Swansea together. Llanelli, Scarlets are rooted in Llanelli, which has been a team which has existed forever. And you can keep that identity. Ospreys was always, I think, slightly doomed. Whilst they did some nice things, it's a lovely club, good people, great players. The other thing is Scarlets, Dragons, Cardiff all have infrastructure. They have stadiums which they have ownership of, and I think that makes it more viable. So as painful as it is, the difficult thing, which I think will be the reality, is if one goes, Ospreys go. And then also you have it set up so you have a team in the southwest in Scarlets, a team in the centre, Cardiff, a team on the east, Dragons. That makes more sense. But that's not where it ends, though. This throws up all sorts of other questions, doesn't it? What do you do with the URC? Do you just play with 15 teams? Can't do that. One team having a rest week. What do you do with the shields? Where they're all nicely organised with 4 shields of 4. The South African shield, the Welsh shield, the Irish shield, and the Scottish Italian shield. It was completely blown a hole in that if one Welsh team goes in 2 years' time. What would happen? Georgia? Black Lion? Should they be introduced? That would be a really good move for international rugby, for Georgia, one of the developing rugby nations, to have a team in the URC. That would be maybe transformative for Georgian rugby. But then would some of the other URC countries, would the WRU and the Scottish Rugby Union and the Irish Rugby Union want that? Because they might be thinking, hold on a minute, if they get too good, they're going to be able to justify a spot in the Six Nations. We need to keep them down. So maybe that won't fly. Should the Cheetahs in South Africa be given another spot? I mean, South Africa, as I've mentioned, rugby mad country, only 4 teams, they could definitely sustain a fifth. Bloemfontein, rugby mad people there. They'd go out and watch the Cheetahs in competition. Maybe that should be the one. What I would love to see, if there was a space opened up, and it would mean you wouldn't have to get rid of the Welsh Shield. You could still have 4 teams, although it wouldn't be exactly the Welsh Shield. I'd love to see London Irish return in the URC. I've talked about that before, video in the channel on London Irish joining the URC. It won't happen because the RFU in England will not let it happen, and they would have to give permission for that to happen. I would love to see it. Having the URC, having London open up with all that diaspora of Welsh people in London, of South Africans, of Scots, of Irish folk, Italians in London, I think it would be incredible. But the RFU are not going to let that happen. I don't know whether you could base a team in Wales. So they're like training base and their headquarters address is in Wales, but then they play their games in London. I don't know whether that is possible. But anyway, if you don't come up with something like that, then the shield system is going to have to get scrapped, which currently means everyone in your shield, you play home and away, and you play everyone else home or away. But that'll have to completely change. So I don't know. There's a lot of things this throws up, and they're going to have to try and work it through. But fundamentally, how rubbish to learn this, especially how rubbish to learn this on a Saturday night when you're actually going, well, at least we've got a Welsh team in the knockouts of the URC. That's really good. Oh, hold on. We've just got another giant steaming turd from the WRU. Although not even from the WRU. From Wales Online, because the WRU kept it to themselves. It seems. We'll see how this one unfolds, but there's some thoughts. And just the start of a discussion. Let me know what you think.